This is a king cobra, a huge and insanely venomous snake. It's got enough venom to take down an entire herd of elephants. This is a black mamba, second only to the cobra in length, aggressive, venomous, the most dangerous snake in Africa. And this is a mongoose weighing just over 4 pounds. And this mongoose is about to kick those snakes' asses. A psychopathic mammal. An unobtrusive reminder to do that thing under this video. Well, you get the idea. So let's start with the king cobra, because this snake really knows how to make an impression. When it feels threatened, it can rise up, lifting as much as a third of its body off the ground, and stare an adult straight in the eyes. And in that position, the cobra keeps attacking. The very height makes it even more dangerous. It's one thing when something small at ground level is about to bite you, and quite another when it's a snake up to 18 feet long. By the way, that's an absolute record among all venomous snakes. The good news is that its venom can't really be called the strongest in the world, but what matters is something else: the amount. With a single bite, a cobra releases up to 0.02 ounces of neurotoxin. That's enough to kill 20 people. The venom attacks the breathing centers in the brain, causing respiratory arrest and heart failure. All in all, it's no surprise that there aren't too many animals in the wild willing to take on a king cobra, take it on and actually survive. There are only a handful of daredevils, and one of them is the hero of our video today, the mongoose. You ever seen a mongoose? There are about 20 species of them, and they don't all look the same, but they do share a few things: a long body, short ears, and a similarity to weasels. Some kinds of mongooses even take on venomous snakes and eat them. Still, their kinship with weasels is misleading. Among carnivorous mammals, there are two big teams: Team Dogs and Team Cats. Weasels are closer to dogs, but mongooses, despite looking alike, actually belong to the cat team. These animals follow a colonial way of life. They live in groups where each one relies on the others. Keep that in mind, we'll come back to it later. And when it comes to their habitat, it's mainly Africa, South Asia, and Southern Europe. The key thing to understand is a mongoose is a small animal. When it steps into a fight with a snake, at first it looks like the cobra has the upper hand. The mongoose seems to play the part of a harmless critter, sniffing at the snake, all shy but curious and fluffy. The snake reacts differently, coiling up, hissing loudly, and if it's a cobra, spreading its hood, making it clear that it's better to back off. After that comes the first strike, and it's almost always the snake that makes it. It tries to scare off the enemy and, if it can, sinks in its fangs. But the mongoose is ready for that. It fluffs up its fur, looking bigger and more dangerous, and still it seems like the little predator hesitates. It leaps forward, only to spring back again over and over. But in fact, this isn't hesitation, it's a clever strategy. The mongoose forces the cobra to attack, provokes it, never letting it relax. This is how a deadly game begins, where no one can afford to lose focus for a second. Just a single glance away, and it's over. The key for the mongoose is to wear the cobra out as much as possible. It dodges strikes, jumps aside, lunges, but never delivers a finishing bite. Every move looks like acrobatics, and sometimes this goes on for a whole hour. The secret of the mongoose is that it doesn't rush, and all the time it's like it's testing how long the cobra is willing to fight. And only when its rage slowly fades, when its movements get slower and less precise, does the little animal start acting more aggressively. It bites the cobra, making it strike again, wasting more energy. This is the most crucial stage of the duel. If the mongoose slips up here, if it takes too many bites, it simply won't be able to keep fighting. But if it holds on and waits until the cobra is completely exhausted, that's when it gets a chance to land a deadly bite. And all this tension leads to one moment: the killing blow. For the mongoose, it's crucial not to lunge blindly or bite randomly. If it did, the cobra would have a million chances to sink its fangs and turn the fight in its favor. But the mongoose seems to have a precise map of the snake's body. It waits, calculates, and only attacks when the very weakest spot, the head, is exposed. That's exactly where it lunges, with a sudden burst and surgeon-like precision. The powerful bite hits the skull, shattering bones and damaging the brain. Sometimes the cobra dies instantly. And if not, the mongoose doesn't let go and starts smashing it against the ground until it's over. Scientists have also observed and documented scenes like this. As far back as 1944, British naturalist Edward Pritchard Gee described a fight between a mongoose and a king cobra. The little animal's quick reflexes and precise strikes left the snake no chance. It all ended just like in hundreds of other similar encounters. Some experts, by the way, claim that mongooses beat venomous snakes 75 to 80% of the time. Honestly, it's hard to imagine who and how calculated such numbers in the wild. But even without the stats, it's clear that this strategy works. The mongoose doesn't give the cobra a single chance. Sure, sometimes the snake manages to land 1 or 2 bites, but even then, the mongoose comes out on top because it's well protected. Remember that moment just before the fight started, when the mongoose's fur stood on end? That's not just for show. This defense actually works. Thick, stiff fur cushions the strikes of a snake's fangs and often stops them from reaching deep into the skin. Even if a bite does get through, the amount of venom may not be enough to do serious harm. But it's not just the fur. The mongoose's skin itself is designed for these battles. It's thick and loose. Piercing it is much harder than piercing the thin skin of most other animals. This gives the mongoose a chance to wriggle free even if the cobra sinks its fangs despite the fur. And there's another surprising defense feature, the scales near the anal area. They create a kind of tiny armor. It might sound odd, but this is what stops a snake from sinking its fangs into the body in the most sensitive spot. By the way, the same fur that helps mongooses avoid becoming cobra victims has turned them into prey for poachers. Artists' brushes are made from the unusual mongoose fur, medium thick, nicely pointed, and stiff enough to draw the tiniest details. Artists around the world consider these brushes exquisite. In 1972, India banned hunting, selling, and buying mongooses or any of their parts because they were being wiped out for their fur. However, poaching still exists because there's a demand. In the early 2000s, about 50,000 mongooses were killed every year. And although more recent data is scarce, experts say the black market keeps thriving. But let's get back to the showdown between mongooses and cobras. If a cobra sinks its fangs into a mongoose, that doesn't mean the fight's over. The little animal might not feel any effects from the first bite. Chemistry comes into play. The first line of defense, receptors. In the brains of mongooses, there are acetylcholine receptors, which are usually targeted by snake neurotoxins. In most animals, the venom blocks these receptors, paralyzes muscles, and causes death. But mongooses have a special mutation. Their receptors are shaped a bit differently. This tiny structural detail stops the toxins from latching on, and the venom passes by the nervous system harmlessly. Eventually, it's just flushed out by the kidneys and liver. It's this mutation that makes mongooses resistant to the venom of cobras, mambas, and kraits. The second line of defense, the blood proteins. The mongoose produces a glycoprotein that binds to the venom and neutralizes it. Thanks to this, a moderate amount of venom doesn't do the little animal serious harm. These mechanisms were studied in detail back in the 20th century. Scientists noticed that the difference in receptor structure between mongooses and other mammals is minimal, but it's enough for the defense to work. However, it's important to understand mongooses aren't completely immune. If a snake bites them multiple times or injects too much venom, the mongoose can get sick or even die from it. That's why the little animal never relies solely on biology. Its main allies are still agility and speed. Oh, and there's another key point. Their resistance isn't the same across the board. Different species and even individual animals can have protection that works better or worse. Some have more mutated receptors, others have higher glycoprotein concentrations. Either way, it's not an all-purpose shield, just a little bonus that gives the mongoose a shot where other animals would have zero chance. And here you, like me, probably wondered, can we use mongooses to make antidotes? So far only in theory. Usually, to make an antivenom, controlled doses of the venom are given to horses. The main reason is that they're bigger and handle the procedure better. Maybe the unique traits of mongooses could be used in antivenom research in the future. But only in the future. Right now, that's not on the table. But what happens if the cobra actually bites the mongoose? In most cases, the first bite isn't deadly. It can cause some local pain and a bit of swelling, but the little creature quickly recovers and goes back to hunting. For example, sometimes the cobra sinks its fangs into the mongoose. It screeches and backs off. Even though it's not a lethal dose yet, the mongoose just feels the pain. And after that, everything depends on the animal's mood. If the mongoose is really hungry, it almost certainly comes back to the deadly dance, trying again and again to kill the snake. If it's not that hungry, it can wait, hold off, and maybe give it another shot another day. But the danger is always there. Many venomous snakes, especially cobras, are much bigger than mongooses and can put up a serious fight. Sometimes they kill the mongoose before it even finishes the battle. Even if the mongoose wins and kills the snake, the threat doesn't go away. The snake's fangs can still damage the stomach or other organs while the mongoose is eating it. Those injuries cause internal bleeding and fluid loss, which can quickly be fatal. So the fight is a choice between staying hungry and risking your life. Every bite and every move can be decisive, and the mongoose has to stay alert and fast from start to finish. But all these flips and tricks of the mongoose work on the ground. What if the snake is higher up, in a tree? A 35-year-old guide, Ankia Pusi, witnessed this on the southern side of Kruger National Park. The day was cool, with a light drizzle, and she was driving along the loop road. Suddenly, the anxious cries of starlings caught her attention, a warning that a snake was nearby. When the open safari vehicle stopped, Ankia realized something was happening with a sickle bush. There was some movement inside it. A large black mamba was climbing up to the top of the bush, hiding among the leaves. The slender mongoose moved up from below toward the mamba, pushing through leaves and branches. It bit the snake on the body and immediately dropped down, escaping a counterattack. The mamba slithered back to the top of the bush and lay in wait, but the mongoose approached again, bit once more, and dropped down again. This went on for about half an hour. The little creature attacked from below repeatedly, wearing the mamba out while staying safe itself. In the end, the mongoose also climbed to the top of the bush and came face to face with the mamba. The snake reared up and opened its jaws, but the mongoose moved quicker, slipping back into the branches each time. It bit the mamba several times without taking any serious hits in return. By then, the mamba was exhausted and beaten. It's interesting that the mongoose just walked away in the end. Nobody knows why. Maybe it was a female protecting her young, and she just needed to make sure the mamba wouldn't harm them. But the main thing is, the little creature handled the venomous snake in the tree just as easily as on the ground. Its strategy is universal. The question is, where did it even come from? The relationship between mongooses and snakes is a fascinating example of evolutionary adaptation. Over time, mongooses have developed not just physical traits, but also complex behavioral strategies that help them deal with threats. This evolutionary arms race has made them one of the few animals capable of taking on some of the most dangerous reptiles on the planet. Resistance to venom also developed over many generations through natural selection. The mongooses that had even a little ability to withstand toxins survived encounters with venomous snakes and passed these traits on to their offspring. Over time, this led to stronger biological defenses, precise attack strategies, and agility that we see today. Remember I said mongooses live in colonies? Well, that plays a role too, because they pass knowledge about snakes on to the next generations. Adult mongooses train their young in several stages. First, the babies are introduced to dead or sick snakes that can't hurt them, and only later do they gradually move on to live prey. The methodical approach is really important here because it helps build skills and confidence which will save their lives in the future. So, when adults attack a rattlesnake as a group, the youngsters don't hang back. They stay as close as possible to the adults, watching every move. Gradually, the babies start imitating their parents and join in the attacks on snakes, acting as full members of the group. But at the same time, the babies are closely monitored. If things get dangerous or if one of the little ones tries to get too close to the snake, the adult caregivers instantly step in and pull them to safety. In this way, through watching and repeating, the young mongooses learn how to deal with venomous reptiles. Later, they become the teachers, and the cycle repeats. Mongooses are so skilled at fighting snakes that neighbors even hire them. Cape ground squirrels live in groups in underground burrows in the dry and semi-dry regions of southern Africa. And these burrows aren't used by them alone. Yellow mongooses regularly hide in these burrows from bad weather, and the rodents let them do it. It works out well for everyone. The mongooses get a home, and the Cape ground squirrels get reliable protection. If a ground squirrel spots an approaching predator, like a snake, it gives an alarm call. Every neighbor hears it, including the mongooses napping in the same burrow. As soon as the little animal peeks out and sees a venomous snake nearby, it will most likely kill it. It's almost like dinner being delivered right to the doorstep. Only it's free. This isn't made up, it's a documented case recorded on video and shown in a documentary. In these circumstances, a mongoose can rightly be called a living security system focused on snakes, keeping neighbors safe while enjoying plenty of bonuses. However, not all scientists agree that the relationship between mongooses and their neighbors works exactly like that. A series of experiments was conducted comparing the behavior of Cape ground squirrels alone with meerkats and with yellow mongooses. The Cape ground squirrels spent less time awake and more time feeding in the presence of meerkats, but became more vigilant when yellow mongooses were around. In another set of experiments with a puff adder, ground squirrels were particularly keen to chase the snake away when with meerkats, not with mongooses. Scientists note that meerkats and Cape ground squirrels get mutual benefits, while yellow mongooses mostly just use the squirrels' burrows for shelter and temperature control. In addition, a number of other animals also benefit from the habitat changes created by Cape ground squirrels. This species can generally be called ecosystem engineers of the dry and semi-dry regions of South Africa. Overall, the scientific community doesn't have a single opinion on this issue, but there does seem to be some connection between mongooses and Cape ground squirrels. A mongoose really can come to a squirrel's help, even if it doesn't realize it's doing something good for it. But why do mongooses even mess with venomous snakes? Is it some inborn fearless streak like in honey badgers? The truth is, there are two reasons: hunting and self-protection. First of all, mongooses are fierce hunters. Most often they kill snakes to eat them, since snakes are a main part of their diet. At the same time, mongooses aren't too picky. Their menu includes insects, rodents, birds, and other small animals, so a snake isn't anything special, just food. Only a bit more dangerous and requiring a little more effort than usual. The examples of hunting in trees clearly show this, especially since there are plenty of such examples. During a vacation in Kruger National Park, a tourist filmed a mongoose jumping on a much larger venomous black mamba hanging from a branch. The mongoose literally swung on the snake in the air, trying to drag its prey down to the ground. The snake's head hung down, bleeding, and the mongoose didn't give it the slightest chance to escape. This went on for almost 5 minutes, and in the end, the snake fell and the mongoose got what it wanted. In other words, it really wanted to eat this snake, and that was the goal of the attack. But there's also another angle in the story. Mongooses have to defend themselves from venomous snakes and protect their babies. A good example is the banded mongooses, which live in groups. What you're seeing is the first time these young mongooses have left their burrow. They explore everything around them, but the first thing on their mind is, of course, food. So the little ones try to find some, stopping now and then to play because, well, they're babies. The youngsters are accompanied by their parents who keep watch over the surroundings in case of danger. The babies try to stay close to the adults to learn how to hunt if it ever comes to that. But a few of the little ones get caught up in their games and lose touch with the others. At some point, they realize they're completely alone. There's no one around except a rattlesnake. These two don't know anything about snakes yet. They haven't learned from their parents how to deal with them. A direct encounter could be deadly. The little ones squeak desperately, but besides the snake, it seems no one can hear them. To survive, they have to run, and there's only one direction, away from the snake. Luckily, the adults are already noticing the missing babies and are looking for them. Things suddenly turn for the snake. It goes from being the hunter to being the hunted. And although the mongooses will probably eat it afterward, their initial goal was just to protect themselves and their young. And the snake, it just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. However, it's not a single case. This python just picked the wrong meal for lunch. At first, the snake tried to strangle a mongoose, but didn't realize what species it was dealing with. See the bands on its back? They show that these are banded mongooses, very social mammals living in countries south of the Sahara in Africa. And when the python went after one of them, the mongooses saw it as an attack on the entire family, and all 15 of the little animals swarmed the snake all at once. Most videos show scenes where a single mongoose fights a single snake, and that's usually what happens. Most mongoose species live alone and hunt for themselves, but the banded mongoose lives in colonies averaging about 20 members, led by a dominant male. When they encounter a snake or another predator, the group acts in unison, combining their strength and protecting the vulnerable. Their fearlessness and teamwork make mongooses a force to be reckoned with. Any predator that tries to snack on one of their family members will have to deal with the rest too, and it'll regret that decision very quickly. Banded mongooses use a defense tactic known as mobbing. The group huddles tightly, moves in sync, and shouts, making themselves look like a single giant threat. And while each hunts on its own, when they meet a snake, quickly turns into a group effort. Interestingly, banded mongooses attack pythons way more often than they really need to. Even if a python is just peacefully sleeping under a bush, the mongooses won't calm down until they've made it their meal of the day. When it comes to smaller, venomous prey, such as scorpions, mongooses take care of them fast. They hold the animal by the back legs and keep tossing it in the air, and the mongoose doesn't even bite off the lethal stinger before going in for the kill. Afterwards, the scorpion is eaten straight up, like really hot chips. Now I want to show you a scene of a completely different kind of hunt, which looks like a tug of war. The mongoose is latched onto the lizard and won't let go, while the lizard fights with all it has. No one's giving up. The struggle goes on right in the middle of the road. At some point, the little creature changes its strategy. It doesn't aim at the body, but at the eyes. With one precise move, it pops out the lizard's eye, and now it barely has a chance. Partly blinded, it loses its sense of direction, and the mongoose easily drags its prey across the road. It's amazing that these little animals have different tricks for different opponents. When it comes to a snake, the mongoose doesn't go for its eyes. That's way too dangerous. Those venomous fangs could be right in front of its face. So the strategy here is different. Wear the enemy out. Get to a point where it's not so dangerous anymore. But with a lizard, it's different. It can't deliver a venomous bite, but it can run away. So the fastest and most reliable way to stop it here is to blind it. At least partially. Turns out mongooses don't just fight lizards, scorpions, and snakes. There's a war going on inside their own world too. Scientists say the whole banded mongoose society is built on a constant push toward conflict. They can drive out their relatives, kill the young, and even resort to cannibalism. And that's just within one family. And when it comes to encounters with neighbors, wars can happen up to 4 times a month. The scene is impressive. 2 groups line up opposite each other, like they're ready for battle. Then the mongooses curl into clumps, writhing and squealing. The noise is such that you wouldn't mistake it for anything else. Most often, the males are at the front. The outcome of the fight depends on their number. It's no surprise that in their youth, males get more attention and are rarely exiled. They're raised carefully, as they're just too important for future battles. And still, this ongoing aggressiveness comes with an unexpected side effect. Research shows the greater the risk of clashes with neighbors, the more protected the offspring are. Adults get extra vigilant, keeping an eye on rivals while also noticing other predators. This way, the young have a higher chance of survival. It's a paradox. Wars that drain and injure the adults at the same time make life safer for the young. You owe me a like. See you later.